Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Livingston, and I am the Bitcoin Wizard. I've been having a lot of fun on X lately because the sentiment around Bitcoin treasury companies is absolutely terrible, and I think the arguments from all of the haters are stupid. I made a post about how Metaplanet's going to become the most valuable Japanese company, and I got an unprecedented level of hate. And I also made a post about Nakamoto getting accusations that I'm getting paid from David Bailey, which is quite hilarious. I literally commented on, hey guys, this company has this much debt. This is what this means if Bitcoin outperforms. I'm literally doing a math problem with no bias, literally just math, and people assume I'm getting paid. No, I do not get paid by these treasury companies for making these fun little videos. I just like watching all the haters squirm. The truth is that I don't even own any Naka. I literally don't even care if it goes to zero. I just like leveraged Bitcoin in a Bitcoin bull rally. Shocker. And I also made the case that Metaplanet becoming the most valuable Japanese company is not necessarily hopium. It's just mathematical reality with the Bitcoin that they have and the Bitcoin that they're going to continue to get based on their acquisition goals for this year, 2026 and 2027. Now, another word of clarification, I'm having a lot of people saying, Adam, what happened to your year-end predictions? If you go back to every single Metaplanet video I ever did, I never once said this stock will be this price on this day because that's stupid. Why in this trade, the MNAV, the valuation of your company, determines your cost of capital, therefore determining your Bitcoin accumulation speed. I think that was clear from making the videos, but I can't predict the Bitcoin price. I can't predict how much they're gonna buy. I can't predict the MNAV. I can't predict really anything, but I can showcase various models. The fact of the matter is that if you bought Metaplanet a year ago today, you would now have 15 times more Bitcoin exposure per share in 1 year. That's correct. More Bitcoin exposure is the entire thesis to this trade. At higher valuations, is their equity issuance more worthwhile? Absolutely it is. So that's what I'm going to be talking about, a deterministic model showing how Bitcoin accumulation could crown Metaplanet as Japan's most valuable company by 2030 or as early as 2027 under the aggressive scenarios. All I gotta say, guys, look at the top 10 most valuable Japanese companies. They're not that valuable compared to American companies, so it's not a really high mountain to climb compared to strategy. Let's look at those right now, actually. Let's go on over to Grok. Give me the top 10 most valuable Japanese companies by market cap. Smiley face, and we're gonna see what it says. Grok 4 expert mode is incredible, but it does take forever. So here we go. Grok has now replied with the top 10 most valuable Japanese companies by market capitalization. Number 1 is Toyota at a $255 billion market cap. For example, the enterprise value of Metaplanet right now is $4.18 billion. And yes, enterprise value is relevant because they hardly have any debt, only 29 million bucks. In fact, the amount of Bitcoin that Metaplanet has right now covers its debt 129.5 times. And that I think has a lot to do with the current valuation. The market's only rewarding it a very small multiple of a 0.12 to the MNAV because there's no leverage. Why would it trade as a leveraged Bitcoin bet when there's no leverage? But that's all coming with the prefs in due time. Super excited for that. So we're going to get into the rest of this presentation. Metaplanet already has 30,823 Bitcoin. So you're staring at a company that has already banked 30,000 plus BTC just for warm-ups, openly taunts 100K next year, and then is whispering 210K by the end of 2027. So their plan is in 2 years to 7x their current stack. That is like reading the market its own death sentence. So I'm going to be unpacking 3 alternate universes tonight, each one powered by the most potent hallucinogen on Earth that a lot of people are allergic to. It's something called mathematics. As we get into the math, this is actually based on yesterday's position where Metaplanet was trading a bit higher, so these are my numbers. 30,823 BTC. The goal is met for 2025. They met it 3 months early, forming the foundation for future expansion. We're at about a 122K BTC spot price right now, so the math will be based off of that price. Pure BTC NAV of about $3.76 billion and a $4.59 billion in enterprise value with yesterday's MNAV multiple of approximately 1.2. And remember, they hardly have any debt, 29.6 million. The leverage is effectively negligible versus their net asset value, which positions them for clean Bitcoin-driven growth. I hope that they can issue the prefs at 25% of their net asset value. That would be quite nice. And imagine if they could do it quickly. That would be radical because that would give them what's 4.6 divided by 4? Well, there you go. $1.15 billion of Bitcoin. That's pretty rad. Here are the hills that we have to conquer. At the summit sits Toyota, depending on the day, 255 bill, 260 bill. The industrial shogun that has spent 80 years building cars and political goodwill, but they only eke out a single-digit CAGR. Then you got SoftBank lurking in the background with $198 billion of venture bets, half of which are memes on leverage. Sony and Mitsubishi tie for the bronze with around $178 billion, which is respectable but already fading in Bitcoin-denominated terms. So remember two things, folks. The yen swings mean the finish line drifts between roughly $260 and $300 billion. It's not a wall necessarily. It is a ribbon flapping in the wind. And we all know that Bitcoin doesn't march in 5% increments. Its rallies look like artillery shells. If you give Metaplanet $1 million Bitcoin and a modest MNAV, you vaporize Sony in a single quarter. You'll flip SoftBank within a year and you'll put Toyota's throne on a 5-alarm fire watch before the next halving anniversary. So when you see these Twitter analysts mumbling that Metaplanet is still tiny, just reply that convexity laughs at linear growth. These incumbents right here, they need decades of grinding operational excellence just to move their market caps 50%. Metaplanet just needs Bitcoin to do what it always has done and the meme multiple to just wake up a little bit. That is why every orange Satoshi on their balance sheet isn't just an asset, it's a surface-to-air missile pointed straight at Japan's corporate skyline. So now let's strip the Bitcoin wizardry down to its 3 master dials. Dial 1 is the BTC accumulation path. Nothing crazy here, just Metaplanet's promise to keep buying until the balance sheet looks like a small nation state. They nailed their 30K this year. Their next goal is 100K BTC, and the year after that is 210. I am literally just using their goals. And remember, they have smashed every single one they've ever set and always need to update their guidance. So this trajectory is not my marketing fluff. They've already executed phase 1. Phase 2 is upon us, which means the next 2 numbers are gonna move from a lofty goal to a budget line item. Now, dial 2 is the Bitcoin price curve itself. We feed 3 different beasts into the model: the conservative log regression slog, the classic power law glide, and the aggressive super cycle rocket of Bitcoin. Now, each one of these is just math telling us how fast the orange tide rises. Even the slow lane turns Metaplanet into an 8-figure sat stacker. The fast lane is where the balance sheets start looking like cheat codes. Now, dial 3 is the MNAV multiple, the meme premium, I like to call it, that we like to slap on any company that warehouses Bitcoin. In boring times of negative sentiment, it is a sleepy 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, but remember, in mania, it can hit 2x, 3x, 5x, 7x, and yes, even 20x. I think the days of the 20x are likely over, but I'm just saying, if you would have bought at a 20x multiple last year, you would have made it out okay. Now, this multiple is the pure narrative nitrous oxide. It detonates after the first 2 dials just do their job. So if you put all of these 3 together, the formula sings: enterprise value equals your BTC HODL stack times your spot price times the MNAV. If you add more coins, if you boost the price, or if you wake up the multiple a little bit, any one of those will push the enterprise value higher, but 2 at once is a compounding force that makes Toyota's linear growth look prehistoric. And that's why I'm confident enough to timestamp a crown takeover window. Because Metaplanet, to a degree, can control dial 1 depending on their cost of capital and what the market gives them. Bitcoin history controls dial 2, and then the market's dopamine response finishes the job on dial 3. But for the sake of this presentation, there are no unrealistic MNAVs here. In fact, a very low MNAV can mean that they will be the most valuable company in Japan. So I want you guys to take a quick breath, because this chart is my fortune-telling scroll. The flat line that is near the floor is the conservative case, with Bitcoin trudging from 180K to 2025K over 2025 to 2030. Metaplanet would then still swell into a $40+ billion beast but Toyota would still snooze on the throne. That would be about a 10x from the enterprise value to today. Now, does anybody really think that we're going to have 225k Bitcoin 5 years from now? I really don't. This is the outcome that a central banker in Japan would absolutely love: steady, polite, and ultimately irrelevant once inflation just eats your pension. So if you slide your eyes to the middle track here, which is the base power law lane, here Bitcoin behaves exactly as the log regression models have whispered for a decade, which is 500,000 coin rising to a cool 1 million per coin by 2030. That would be Toyota watching its rearview mirror in about 2029 or 2030, depending on a few variables, and realizing the headlights belong to the Bitcoin freight train. And now for the fireworks, which is the aggressive parabolic lane. Bitcoin detonates past 1 million per coin. The MNAV streaks to a 2.2, and then we just look at this near vertical ascent in 27. Metaplanet's enterprise value would smash through 400 billion, 500 billion, 600 billion like a katana through tofu, leapfrogging every Japanese titan with a lot of room to gloat. In this timeline, Toyota doesn't have time to react. By the next earnings call, the emperor is already signing scrolls. Now the comments, I can already hear them, but Adam, you're assuming that they can already hit their Bitcoin targets. Absolutely, they've smashed everyone they've ever set. And also, I'm assuming in these scenarios that they stop buying Bitcoin from 2027 to 2030. That's correct. For over half of this model, they stop buying Bitcoin altogether. That's when you really start to realize, wow, Adam's not crazy. It really is just math. That is the power of Bitcoin compounding, even at small MNAV multiples. This is the truth. Worst case scenario, Bitcoin hardly moves and the MNAV still doesn't move. You see massive growth, a 10x, and only this most pessimistic path fails to claim the crown. If you raise any of the dials, the price or the multiple or the stack or the sentiment, the takeover date will vault forward. And that is exactly what convexity feels like. One asset, one balance sheet, 3 very different destinies, yet 2 of them end with Metaplanet perched atop Japan Inc. And yes, they're waving their Bitcoin-stamped battle flag. Now remember, this is based on sensitivity, and these are the turbochargers. Think of these 3 levers as the turbochargers bolted on to Metaplanet's Bitcoin engine. If you nudge any one of them, the whole vehicle screams forward. First lever is the Bitcoin price, which is why I have a heavy position in Metaplanet to begin with, because I believe in the inevitability of Bitcoin, so I want to make a leveraged bet on a certainty. A plain 25% uptick in the spot price means a straight 25% lift to enterprise value. If Bitcoin lifted, let's say, close to 10x, just for simplicity's sake, to $1 million, that would mean that Metaplanet's enterprise value from today's Bitcoin stack would be what? $46 billion? The second lever is the meme multiple. If you add half a turn to the MNAV, for example, moving from 2.2 to 2.7, you would pour an extra 23% market cap onto the 2027 projection, which is the pure narrative oxygen that we all enjoyed over the summer. Weren't those glorious times before you all had an emotional reaction and got mad at the short sellers? And you just capitulated like a little rat and started to project your emotions on me? We love those people, folks, don't we? And remember, the biggest lever that I didn't even factor in would be adding 50k Bitcoin in 26 or 27. I didn't even model them in adding any more past the 220k goal. If the coin stacks 50%, you directly boost the enterprise value by 50%. That's just the way it works. Simple multiplication, I know, it's terrifying to incumbents. Now just picture any 2 of these levers firing together for even short periods of time. That's when you start to see explosion. The price pops and the multiple might follow, or Metaplanet buys another chunk while the prices edge higher. Either combo catapults the company past Toyota as early as 2028, even if we were coasting in the base scenario. Small tweaks, giant consequences. That is the asymmetric beauty of a Bitcoin treasury on rocket fuel. We got to remember that stack velocity is everything. If Metaplanet slams the throttle and somehow hits 200k BTC by mid-2027, it would chop roughly a year and a half off the timeline to corporate supremacy. Front-loading the stack is like skipping leg day on the way to the Olympics. You clear the bar while everyone else is still stretching. Multiple expansion, we all know, is the silent turbo. The market rewards you twice, first when the Bitcoin rips and again when the street decides to price your balance sheet. At a bigger meme multiple, the price action plus the MNAV ignition is compound interest on rocket fuel. The numbers start doubling while Toyota is still doing their division. And I'm not lying, I'm actually factoring in Toyota's tame trajectory. A steady 5 to 8% share price CAGR keeps the hurdle around $300 billion to $330 billion. And we all know that the BTC-centric convexity easily overpowers traditional corporate growth that we would see from them. It's not even a question. When we look at the risk lens, it's kind of hilarious. A super strong yen? Yeah, sure. Tokyo's new corporate governance crusade from their new prime minister? I don't know. Maybe we see some of that. Doubt it, but who knows? I think that a lot of these headwinds that people talk about are in lower probability lanes, in my opinion. But remember, this is not financial advice. This is financial entertainment. As I've learned over the last few months that I say things and people just take them out of context entirely, accuse me of getting paid. It's hilarious. These people are stupid, absolute clowns. Anyway, enough of talking about that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm bogging down the video, I know. All I'm saying, the math says, is that if you accelerate your stacking a little bit, and if you pray for a little bit of a meme multiple expansion for a short period of time, Toyota's throne will become a historical footnote literally within the next 5 years. This is what I'm talking about, guys. The coronation ceremony is already on the calendar for Metaplanet. Bitcoin just hasn't mailed the invitations quite yet. If Metaplanet just stays on their schedule that they're on and Bitcoin follows its boring middle case power law glide, assuming they don't buy any Bitcoin from 2027 to 2030, the throne flips by 2029 to 2030. That's not hopium. It's literally math. If you're too lazy, just go do it yourself. 210K BTC on the balance sheet multiplied by $1 million coin and a meme multiple that wakes up just a little bit to 1.6x, that means that we're there. But if the super cycle firestorm hits a parabolic run that last summer looked like a dress rehearsal, we could see a detonation 2028, 2027 even though I believe those 2 years are a lot less likely. The lesson is very brutal and simple, kids. In an era where balance sheets get to weaponize the greatest asset in the world, Bitcoin, that means the corporate hierarchies which are depending on operations, aka not Bitcoin, the balance sheets that are not governed by century-old cash flow models, but by who stacks hardest, fastest, and lets the market dopamine do the rest. Well, I really think that you can easily see who's going to be a winner over the next 5 years, over the next decade, over the next century. Bitcoin is winning in perpetuity, but remember, this is not financial advice. This is financial entertainment. Have a terrific day. Don't party too hard. And remember, go touch grass, you little bear clowns. Class dismissed. Once again, a very special thanks to Horizon for sponsoring this video. And remember, most people don't realize this, kids. On average, 60% of American homeowners' net worth is locked up in their primary residence. Yes, that is very sad, isn't it? And with home prices more inflated than ever thanks to our endless currency debasement, Americans now sit on a combined $35 trillion in home equity. That's a whole lot of moolah that can flow to Bitcoin. Now, what if I tell you there's a way to unlock that trapped capital in your decaying cardboard home? And then you just put it to work in Bitcoin. Well, guess what? Horizon helps homeowners unlock a portion of their home equity to buy Bitcoin. And remember, it's not a loan, kids. There are no new monthly payments. You get to keep living in your home as usual, and later when you sell, refinance, or choose to settle early, Horizon's provider takes an agreed share of your home's future value, and that is the trade. You can unlock cash now to stack Bitcoin by selling just a little slice of your home's decaying drywall. Yes, a slice of your home's future value while you continue to live in your home. What makes Horizon stand out is that there are no term limits, and you keep literally 100% of the Bitcoin upside. The Bitcoin is fully yours to custody however you want, wherever you want, with zero risk of forced liquidation. If you've been sitting on a pile of home equity and are eager to invest in Bitcoin, this may be the product for you. Visit joinhorizon.com to see if you qualify and get started. Their team of experts will work with you one-on-one from start to finish because they are very nice people. Transform your dormant home equity into Bitcoin today with Horizon.